Desolate. Epilogue. Walter gazed upon Dr. Graham's face with a solemn glare, regretful, as he feared he had just wasted hours of his time. "You don't believe me," he murmured, while he glanced out the window, his mind racing at the thought of starting a new life, a life in which he was once again put onto a path of isolation, deprived of any friendly faces or loved ones he could call his own, a seed of discontent that sprouted and pulled at the strings of his heart, sinking it into oblivion. "I never said that," she replied, a sentence that fell against Walter's wall of stubbornness as he was unwilling to deviate from the crashing of waves from below. Dr. Graham, knowing her client better than most, drilled through the barricade with all her might, playfully tapping at his shoulder until he jerked his head back towards her. "I never said that," she emphasized. "You didn't have to say it. No one has to say it these days," he exclaimed, his words venomous, while he curled into defense, his face no longer preserving the luminescent spark it preserved while he shared the tale of his adventure. "Don't be ridiculous, Walter. Do you think I would have sat here the entire flight with you if I thought you were lying?" she asserted. Her patient considered her words before scornfully shaking his head. "Being paid by the hour isn't the same as listening. You did it for a fat check, nothing more." "I wasn't paid a cent," she hissed. "Then it seems that both of us wasted our time." Dr. Graham sunk within herself and put her knackered face into the warmth of her hands, exhaling a deep sigh of exhaustion. "Sometimes I don't know how to talk to you, Walt. It's like you keep putting me down as entertainment. To be honest, it's disheartening to deal with, but I suppose that's your intention." "If that's the case, then well done. You're truly succeeding," she gasped. "It's not," admitted Walter, mumbling under his breath while his stomach curled in remorse. "You never meant to harm the woman. She at least tried to listen to him. It was more than what most people gave him." Dr. Graham then rose from her seat and released a delicate yawn as she turned her back to Walter. A rush of concern trickled down his back. "You're leaving?" he blurted, his voice roaring as the other passengers gawked and grimaced. "You'd like that, wouldn't you?" she joked. Her smile faded as she realized Walter was dead serious, alarmed while he fidgeted in his seat. "Of course I'm not leaving you. I'm just going to the bathroom. I'll be landing soon. It might be the last opportunity," she stated, calming her patient's nerves while he eased into his chair and nodded. While the doctor's footsteps trailed away, Walter experienced an odd sensation. It had been a long time since he'd been alone, a feeling that once brought him comfort, but as he sat in his chair, only brought him grief. Grief only amplified by the shards of memory that rang in his ear. Dr. Oscar and Gregory's voices echoing in Walter's matter. Both affirmed what would happen to him if he shared the island's secrets, the treachery that would befall such a sin. He'd be cast off as a pariah, plucked from society and crammed into a loony bin. Despite their advice, he naively spewed his guts to the three explorers who rescued him, the airline supervisor, the nurses at the medical ward, countless authorities, and now Dr. Graham. A lone saving grace who, in his eyes, at the start, did not differ from the rest of them. Despite the psychologist's shortcomings, she offered one crucial lifeline Walter couldn't possibly refuse. Dr. Graham at least admitted she didn't think he was lying. An undeniable fact and something Walter was rarely told. Now, were those words true? Well, that's a different story. But she at least let the words fall from her mouth, and at that time, it was enough for him. She had also given Walter the chance to divulge every truth and memory he stored, painting a complete picture for the women with every color in his repertoire. It was a picture he also feared completing, for the second the paint was dry, then there was no going back. The man sapped every inch of juice from the tales he could remember, which in reality was far less than he encountered. But with each remembrance, he could delay reality's judgment, and while Dr. Graham listened to every single story, he couldn't delay her forever. His story had to come to an end, and he couldn't make it any less traumatic or grim than it actually was. It was the only story he had to tell. It was his truth. Walter was left waiting patiently in his chair for the doctor to return, picking at the seams of his cast and staring at the television monitor to pass the time. After a while, Dr. Graham returned with a bag of snacks. "Here you go, Walter. I thought you might enjoy these," she said. "Thanks, I'm starving," he replied, as he plucked the bag open and funneled the barrel of peanuts down his gullet. "Look, Walter, I shouldn't have complained to you like that. This is my job, and you're just trying your best to communicate with me. The fact that you're even talking at all, it's very comforting." "Do you think I'm telling the truth?" he interrupted. "Is this another one of your tricks?" she asked. "Please, I need to know," he exclaimed, earnest as ever. Dr. Graham appeared flushed. "I said I didn't think you were lying. Not that you were telling the truth," she answered. Walter was unimpressed. "That's exactly the same." "Is it? I think it's the perfect balance. You're convinced all of those events happened to you on the island. These aren't fabrications or figments of your imagination you decided to regurgitate as fact. You truthfully think they occurred. Because of that, it would be incorrect to say you're lying," she explained. Again, Walter's face was blank. "And yet, I'm still not telling the truth?" "Precisely. Whether you're cognizant of it or not, from what you describe, it's rather clear you may have suffered from hallucinations or delusions. No doubt a result of starvation and severe dehydration, which isn't anything to be ashamed about, might I add, but simply a byproduct of your tragic circumstances." "My schizophrenia diagnosis must factor in," he admitted. "Well, I'm a suspect whether that actually impacted you, but yes, it doesn't help your case," she replied. "Dr. Oscar warned me about this. How you'd all spin my story and twist it into some cliched crap about my childhood." Dr. Graham signaled for Walter to pause and rifled through her notes. "Let's see," she exclaimed while parting through her pages. "Gregory, Darwin, Zeta, Gamma, and yes, finally, Dr. Oscar. Well, from what I gathered, it seems you remember him saying that Gregory died due to injuries the day after the crash. Also that you conjured him in your mind to cope with the stresses of the island, and how he was your friend who guided you to survival. Is that accurate?" she asked. "Well, it's not accurate, but that's what he said," Walter admitted. "That's what makes me question you, Walt. What he said to you was exactly what my supervisors told you earlier, the morning after you were rescued. It's identical to the diagnosis they shared. Repeating it in your story was like decryptomnesia. Basically, the memory was in your head and you unknowingly placed it in your story thinking it was original. But it wasn't, Walter," said the doctor, who was sincerely withholding judgment, aware of her words' gravity, how it could smother her client into a relapse. Walter paused for a few moments, collecting his thoughts while he mulled the only question that actually mattered to him. Is it better to live life as a grain of salt or a grain of sand? Walter had entered the crossroads of that very question. There was no hiding any more from what he was. It was time to choose. He could have easily told the psychologist exactly what she wanted to hear, that he was making it all up because he was scared and didn't know what to say. Doing so would lessen the worries of all around him. They write him off as another classic case of a mind that fell off the tracks. But if he told them he did not believe his words, that he was making it all up, then it was possible to find the tracks again, to regain his normalcy, the same path he chose as a child. This was the path of the grain of salt. He could diffuse under the ocean's safe shield and hide from the ridicule and judgment of all around him. He could be forgotten, because to be normal is to be forgotten. This is not the path of Walter Mai. He knew he'd be rejected, dismissed by those who knew him as odd or strange, but that's exactly what he was. By constantly masking himself, he'd forgotten the face that lied beneath, and so he refused to wear a mask, and through his story, the face that lied beneath could shine. As peculiar and awful as his story might be, at least he got the chance to show himself. At least he was honest. Dr. Graham, that very well could be the case. But questioning what I've felt, seen, and lived, it terrifies me. Truthfully, in my life, it's a tenuous line between reality and fiction. When you're schizophrenic, there is no line. Simply what you see and what you feel. And the more you question them, the less you'll see and the less you'll feel, rendering you numb, rendering you obsolete. And at times, I wish I could believe what you all tell me. I wish I could pretend that my friends didn't die and my pain was all part of a faulty glitch in my brain, and I wish it was just fantasy. And the truth is, there's a reason why deep down I can't accept that fate. Because if I did, it would feel like I'd be betraying myself, ripping away the fibers that have created who I am, what Gregory taught me to be. Even if telling the truth comes at the cost of people thinking I'm insane. Hell, I'm surprised you even kept listening. I thought if I talked long enough, you'd make me stop. I hoped you would too. Because every word I said to you, every part of me I ripped to the surface for you, it made me bleed. It made me feel what I've numbed myself to. But you kept listening. And I never wavered. I never doubted. It's a strange feeling, but for some reason I know it to be true. And that has to count for something, because if I can't convince you after I've laid every goddamn card I had on the table, then I don't know who I could convince. The more I try to explain myself, the more people worry. But what they don't understand is that I'm perfectly sane. I'm just broken. And I've found a way to pick up the pieces, but people keep telling me to stop. It's like they want me to be this way. For the more they try to fix me, the more they end up breaking me, he pleaded. Walter was releasing the cloak of protection he so often wore, ripping the threads away and offering pure honesty, even at the risk of ridicule. He was growing tired of people laughing at his claims. People didn't understand that there wasn't a string of words in the dictionary anyone could have linked together to change his mind. It was concrete, warts and all. Walter, with the risk of losing my job, I'm going to be completely sincere with you right now. Regardless of what my evaluation says, they're putting you in treatment, a separate facility where you can be healed. Now, I'm not certain that's necessary, or in your mental state even ethical, but what I know is this. Disregarding logic and facts, there's a part of me that believes you. Feel free to question it, but I wanted you to know that. Whatever happens to you in the next few months, I wanted you to know you're not alone. Walter, it's entirely possible every word you said to me was true. And while it may be beyond our reach to find proof, that doesn't mean you shouldn't cling to that minor possibility, to embrace its lunacy, and comfort your troubles. At the end of the day, Walter, as long as you believe in your story, the rest doesn't matter. Walter couldn't help but grin. It was the last thing he expected to come out of her mouth, and with it, he had a sense of closure. Even announced the belief was more than he ever needed. And as he sat in his chair, beguiled by a feeling he had yet to feel, all he could do was smile. Dr. Graham then rose from her seat, finally satisfied with the session's progress. I'll let you rest, Walter. But we'll chat after we land, okay?" she stated, as she handed him his sleeping medication. She then extended her hand and gleamed at Walter, who was jubilant from ear to ear. "Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for believing me," he said, as they shook hands and left each other. Walter then sank back into his seat and closed his eyes, incessant stresses and fears fading as his mind slipped into blissful dream. Again, floating atop a serene bed of water, weightless and immune to the troubles that plagued the sky above, the dreadful reality in which he no longer lived. He then woke up to the sound of wheels, cruising against the rubble of damp pavement, landing safely as passengers clapped in the aisles, his pupils flickering through a blaze of the light above and the sheen of weathered gray leather lied before him. Dreary and drained from his long journey, anxiously waiting for the next one to come by and gobble him up. While such a prospect would often terrify him, in that moment he felt secure. Despite being by himself, he no longer felt alone. Through his adventure he had gained passion, love, and trust. The world was no longer colored in black and white. There was more to see, more to learn. Walter's dip into serenity was interrupted by a single sound ringing in the air. "Can I help you with your luggage?" a peculiar voice asked. Walter's mind swirled in delirium as he turned to the creature seated beside him and froze, perplexed by two piercing pools of blue and a reflection that couldn't have been more foreign, a sight that made him gush as desolation melted away. The end.